Hello students. In this class, we will study about event handling in password elements and some other JavaScript objects. As we already know that we need to register for many web services, and for that we have to provide our username and passwords. Password is a secret word, so it is not echoed on the screen. That means, so whenever we type password character, the actual character are not displayed on the monitor. Instead of that, we may get some asterisk or any other special characters. So we should be very confirmed about the password entry. So the software developers or web page developers will make you to enter the password 2 times. So if you are very sure or very confirmed about, so you will not forget the password very easily. So the logic is that if you enter the password twice without any mistake, then you will remember that password for a long time. So if you are entering the password and every time the password is to be sent to the server, then server will get busy. And also password checking is a very small job, and for that job we need not to send the data over the internet. Instead of that work, simple verification of the password entry can be done at the client side, that is within our browser window. So here the JavaScript helps us, and here is one example. And the advantage of using JavaScript for such type of task is that generating very less network traffic. So network traffic will be very less, so that the server will do some useful task instead of doing this silly task. So for that, so example is not given completely in this slide because the code little bit big, so I can't fit that code within one slide. So I have given just the JavaScript code here. See, in the web page there will be a forum and it contains reset and submit button. You are already familiar with these buttons. If I click on reset button, whatever the entry I done in the fields, that is text boxes, they will get cleared. If I click on the submit button, the information that I entered in the text box or selection made in the checkbox and radio buttons, they will be sent to the server. That's the destination. And here password entry is checked when I press on the submit button, or when the second text box, that means I need to enter the password 2 times, when the second text box loses its focus, then for that blur event, that means losing the focus means it's a blur event. When blur event occurred for the second, then also password checking will be done. That means same work is done for the password checking is done on 2 events. One is when I click on the submit button, next one is when the second text box loses its focus. So the function has to be checked, and here it performs 2 tests. One is here is if the initial password is blank or not. That means if I entered any, if I did not entered any characters, then that will be checked by the tag here. And if no password has been typed into the first field, automatically it has to display the error message. And if the second test, if two typed passwords are same or not, if they are not same, then again it has to use the alert method to generate error message. So in the first test, whether the first field is blank or not. So if the first text field is blank, so correctness or equality operation it does not perform, error message is displayed. In the second test, if the both fields are entered and if they are not same, then error message. If they are same, it causes alert to produce some welcome message. It's just a demonstration. It is not such type of simple logic is not used in the production environment or in the actual website. Some more complex logics are used, but to learn to understand how the password checking mechanism is used, so this will give one simple idea. Here is the JavaScript code. Observe that I am not showing any HTML code here, is only the JavaScript code. So the first elements, that's the first text box value, is extracted by document dot get element by id, that is stored in the variable init. Similarly, for second, that is the second password entry stored in sec. In the first test, see, this is the first test. If the init dot value, that means the text returned by the get element by id, so for this property, if it is equal to blank empty string, so here is the message, you did not enter a password, and focus is goes back to init. Observe that init is the first text field, it will get the focus and returns false. There is a need not to return a false for this experiment, but for the larger scale or more useful logic, I need to use these values whether the password is correct or not, that is return false or return true, it is depending on the logic. If it is not equal to blank, that means I have entered some information in the init. So now we'll go for the value of init is compared with sec value, that is second one. If this is not equal, you can check that here is the boolean operation, so not equal to, so alert the two passwords you entered are not same. I'll just erase it. So passwords are not same, and again init.focus, it will get the focus, and one more thing here is the very important one, select. That means automatically whatever the text you have entered earlier, it will get selected. Then one, return false. If this condition goes false, that means it is if those values are equal, then alert password is accepted, welcome, one welcome message here. If you enter the values in the both text fields same, then you will get this message. And as already told, this document behavior, that is event handler behavior, is controlled by programming code. So you can observe that here is nothing is mentioned which element is linked with which event handler. That is done later, that's at the end of the code, and for that I will go for another JavaScript file, and here is document dot get element by id. So this is the second method for assigning the property event handler name to the event attribute, that is on blur. So for on blur, I'm specifying the name of the JavaScript function, that is chk passwords. This is the name of the JavaScript function, and same is assigned to submit also. Observe that this is the name of the forum, not the input text fields. Let's go back the previous one once again. See, this is the name of the JavaScript function. The same name is you assigned for the on blur event of the second text field, or on submit event for the my forum. I will go for the example forum later. Let's go for the next topic. Okay, here is the screenshot how it will shows or executes. Observe that in the first field I have entered only 4 characters. Whatever enter, which character I entered is not important here because the length of the strings not matching. So here is 4 characters. In the second one, only 3 characters. So automatically it is incorrect password. So I am getting the message here is, that means when I click on the submit query submit button, I will get the two passwords you entered are not same. Please re-enter both now. So this is the screenshot. So you may get little bit different type of alert window depending on the type of the operating system, type of the browser and the version of the browser. So here is just one screenshot and I have captured this screenshot in Internet Explorer. If you are using Google Chrome, you may get little bit difference. So but the message that is to be displayed within the alert window, always it will always be same because that is from the JavaScript code. We studied about DOM zero event model, the most advanced one and very useful for the large scale website application. DOM 2 event model is used, and DOM 2 event model is modularized one, and here it is events and their submodules are used, and there are basically two are used. There are many submodules are there. One is here is two most popular used here is one is HTML events and mouse events. So in this group, the interface is based on the event. So sorry, based on the interface event, and these are the event comes under the category HTML event. Likewise for mouse related, that is click, mouse up, mouse down, mouse move, mouse over, mouse up, etc. are related to mouse events. Event propagation is the very important topic in implementing the events in the web pages, and there are three phases. Actually two are used. First one and middle one are last one and middle one. We'll go for this. What are these? There are three phases process, and the browser, depending on the version of the browser, either all three are first one first one and second one or last one and second one is used. This is depends on the version of the browser and type of the browser. So there are many differences. I'm not sure about what is the type event propagation is done in the recent versions, but in earlier the Mozilla Firefox and Netscape Navigator were using capturing face, and Internet Explorer were using bubbling face. That means capturing and target node, or bubbling face, target node face. So now whenever an event is occurred, where the event is occurred, that will be the target node. That means when I click on a button, that will become a target node, and processing, that means propagation of the event handler from root node to target node, and target node to root node. So this is the two options for the browsers. So it will be a little bit different when a large scale very complex website, but nowadays almost all following the same method. So let's go for what is capturing phase. In the capturing phase, the event created at the target node starts at the document root node and propagates down to the tree to the target node. That means if you are within the web page, and where I click the button, if it is comes somewhere within the document tree, then the propagation of the event is started from the document root node to target node. And during that, if there are many nodes, root node to subnode, then subnode to another its subnode, then subnode to another subnode, then finally our target node. During that propagation, if those nodes have event handlers and those event handlers are enabled, if they are enabled to propagate, then all those events handler also executed. That means even though event is generated at the target node, similar event is enabled for its parent, then its grandparent node. So likewise too, if you reach up to the root node, and if they are all same events and if they are all enabled, then all those event handlers are executed. In the target node phase, the event handler for the target node is executed. It's quite natural, that is our expectation. So when I click on a button, then the on click event register for that node must and should execute. That's what we are expecting. But in the advanced and very complex event propagation, it's a little bit different. In bubbling phase, event bubbles back up the document tree to the document node. That means where the event is generated, that is from the target node. From target node to the document node, root node, actually it should be document root node. While moving up, any registered handler, and if even if they are enabled or not enabled, they are also executed. And not all events are bubbles up. For example, load and unload events of the body tag does not bubble. That means here they do not bubble up. Means if any event occurred at that node, from that to document tree, propagation is not done. That's the exception case. Now sometimes we need to stop the such type of propagation. So then DOM 2 provides such type of one provision for that to the web page programmer, that is stop propagation. If the target node does not want to propagate it to up, are propagated from root to target node, then within the event handler we need to call stop propagation. And also for some events some browsers will perform default actions. That means even though we have not provided any event handlers, they will do something. If I want to prevent it, then I have to call the method prevent default. And almost event object implements such type of a method with its objects. And here comes very important part, that is event handler registration in DOM2. In DOM0 we already studied on click equals JavaScript name, or within the JavaScript the document get element by ID, then the element name dot event attribute equals JavaScript name. So these are the two possible methods in DOM0, but in DOM2 it little bit advanced, most useful for the end web programmers, which helps in developing the very complex and very large scale website applications. Here handler registration is performed by add event listener. Add event listener is specifying for which event handler is to be registered. So for which element is to be registered, and for that what should be the name of the event handler, everything is to be specified. And here it takes three parameters. In that, first one is the name of the event as a string literal. So for example, here is to register event handler, that is check name on the text element whose id is cust name. We may consider it as a customer name, so that is here customer name. For the customer name, that is cust name, I am adding an event that is for change event. I am assigning the JavaScript event handler chk name, and here propagation is false. I am specifying the event propagation is false. I just explained the capturing phase and bubbling phase. Once again I will repeat it. The code register to the text element customer name. For the change event handler name here is chk name. So this is the JavaScript name. See, this is the JavaScript name, and the event string here is change event on change. For example, here is, if it is in DOM0 it is on change, but in DOM2 it has a string literal. I am specifying the event listener. That means for customer name, event handler is specified. So this is the very useful in large scale. We can assign add event listener dynamically. That means during the program web page is being displayed, we can assign it dynamically depending on the situation. I need not to specify the event listener at the beginning or within the code itself. When we are adding the event listener, then we need to remove it on some situation. So when the event handler performed its function, and if you want to unregister it, that means after the use of the event handler, I want to unregister it such that I can add different event handler listener for the same element, which is not possible in the case of DOM0. So in DOM2 I can assign one event handler at one particular time. For the same element I can assign different one different event handler in the different time. So to achieve this, the OM2 provides a remove event listener method for this purpose. So remove event listener deletes the registration and it takes the same parameter as that of the event handler. So for example, here is same as in the previous slide. This is the name of the element, that is customer name. Already assigned CHK name will be unregistered for the event change. Navigator object, it is an JavaScript DOM object available in almost all browsers. This provides some details about the browser being utilized, being used in our computer. It's not related to web server. We will not get anything about the server information here. This object shows the details. For example, app name is the property which gives name of the browser, whereas app version gives the property, that's the version of the browser. We will get different values for different browsers for this property. So if I use for Firefox, then I will get a different name and different versions. And if I use the same, that means if I open the same code in different browser, for example Google Chrome, I may get different one. And also it's not a public standard, so except some major browsers, some experimental and not so popular browsers may not support this. So in such cases, the JavaScript will not work on those browsers. Here is a simple code. Observe that for body on load, NAV properties, that is navigate properties, navigator properties, and when the bodies begins loading loading the content, then it calls this function. In that, observe that the alert function, here is string concatenation. I am using the object name directly here, navigator dot app name string concatenation, then the version number is navigator dot app version. Not only for on load, I have given the same code for button, is on click. Same here is, if I click on the button, then also I will get the same result. So now we'll go for DOM tree. We have studied for DOM tree about the DOM tree in the beginning of this unit. All the codes were tags, elements are referred in a tree format, and programmatically we can access them by using JavaScript codes, and also at the server side we may go for most advanced programming language such as PHP, Perl, Servlet, etc. to manipulate these tree structures. That means dynamically we can change these document tree structures at the client side. That means in the JavaScript it also provides some supports to manipulate it. Here is DOM tree traverser. That means moving from one node to another or to get the information of the other nodes, it has some property. So the object, any elements object has a property that is called parent node, which provides address of the parent node. That means DOM address of the parent node. Likewise child nodes, observe that it is a child nodes, not the child node, because any element can have any number of child nodes. So we can't restrict to just only one or just two or three. So that property is essentially an array of child nodes. That means it is array of DOM address of child nodes. Previous sibling is the property that provides the address of the previous sibling. That means if the element is at the same level in a document tree, that means sibling nodes are nodes of child nodes of same parent node. In that situation previous node's address can be accessed or extracted by using the property previous sibling. Similarly for next sibling, and if the element has many property child nodes, then the first child's address can be get by the property first child, and similarly last child, and type of the node can be extracted by using the property node type. And for modification we can use these proper functions, that is DOM functions: insert before, that is new child, and reference child. By using this method I can insert a new child before the referenced child, that means reference child. Likewise I can replace a child by the new one, that means this will be the old child, existing child, in its place new child will be displayed. Means here it is very useful while handling the complex table tags within the web page. If a row is to be inserted, if a column is to be inserted, if a particular cell is to be replaced or modified, in such cases these tree modification method heavily used. Likewise, I already told, if the child is not required or unwanted in the web page, I can use the remove child. And append, that is at the end of the list the new child is added.